And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Mass Duel podcast here with me, Charles Prodigy Ritchie. As we got a good one in store right now. And once again, congratulations, both coaches being named this past weekend as the first two inductees into the 2020 Canton Pro Football Hall of Fame that will be taking place this summer in Canton, Ohio. The date that will be set for that time when the official ceremony takes place for the Hall of Fame enshrinement. That will be on Saturday, August 8th of this year. And then I believe they got the gold jacket ceremonies too, which they usually do, I believe, the day before, which should be on August 7th. Those will be viewed on NFL Network. And right now, let's get some other topics right now. Just heard Stan Savran of ESPN Pittsburgh 970 AM at Stan. Love the show. He followed on Twitter. And we look at, he had some very encouraging news from a guy like Art Rooney. He got his reaction about Power, especially more in particular, being named on Saturday as the first Hall of Famer and how soon. I got to say, it definitely shocked, me and a lot of people. I mean, just to be that early. Usually when this stuff gets announced, it's usually the day before the Super Bowl. But I was also listening to this morning on 93.7 The Fan with the Cook and Joe show as Ron Cook was not in today. It was Joe Starkey and Bob Papiani was filling in for Ron Cook this morning on the show, and they're talking about how they feel like Cowher getting in, more in particular, coming from Joe Starkey, who made a comment. And he believes one of the things that they're doing, because, David Baker, who's the president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, who made an announcement, this past weekend, they believe that because with it being the 100th season of the NFL and with the class being expanded so much, that they believe that Bill Cowher had the beneficiary of this being a centennial class. Remember, it was two coaches, three contributors, 10 senior nominees, plus 5 modern era players. So we already know the two coaches that are going to be going into the Hall of Fame this year. Of course, beginning with Bill Cowher. And then, of course, Sunday evening, it was announced on NFL on Fox. And another big shout out and congratulations to Jimmy Johnson, former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, led the Cowboys back-to-back Super Bowls. Both coaches in their respective ways. When you look at Cowher and, of course, Jimmy Johnson, from this aspect, because Starkey was on the field, like if you were to go into his personal Hall of Fame, he really felt that Cowher really technically didn't belong because he really believes, and of course, like Jimmy Johnson, that this should have been the greatest of the greats of coaches. When you think about the all-time history of this Pro Football Hall of Fame class. You look at a lot of great names on here. Over the years, when we look at great coaches who have made it on this list, you have like 326 members on there. And for the coaches, you look at guys like George Papa Bear Halas, who was one of the original founding fathers of the NFL. When you look back at it and historically and how this game has evolved, a league that started in 1920, and when it first began, at the time, it was originally called the American Professional Football Association, the APFA. 1922, the third year, is when it officially changed over to the NFL, the National Football League. So I really believe when I look at all this stuff right now, and as we take a look at it, for this year going into it, it was definitely a lot of stuff going on here. And I just really felt right now, when you look at a guy like Cowher, a guy who a lot of people really felt like he should have been in a while ago. No doubt about it. But he's also been a guy too. When you look at his overall stats for what he's done and the way he's just coached up players, men, and more importantly, I think the one unique thing that I was always admire Cowher for was that he is a family guy. I mean, he cares more about his family. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he stepped away from coaching at a time where he felt like he wanted to be there for them. They wanted to have a house in Carolina. Him and his wife Kay at the time, who actually passed away about 10 years ago in July, I believe it is. That's coming up. Sad loss right there. Continue thoughts and prayers to the Cowher families. He's married to his wife, Veronica. And you look at everything that he's had to overcome as a man and just more as a human being. I mean, one thing, especially with a guy like Chuck Noll, I mean, everyone had in common was that they would definitely try and coach these guys beyond the game of football. And that's the biggest, most important thing, I think, when we look at it and like how much these guys connected home to a lot of fans, players, and just overall values. And I think Bill Cowher definitely served that. I mean, if you ask me. I mean, he was a guy who just really like I said, a guy who was born in Pennsylvania. I mean, Bill Cowher. I mean, like he was born in Crafton, who was hired at the age of 34 by the Steelers. And you just look at like how much like this game like meant to him. He even said it. I mean, when he was obviously emotional and humbled with tears after getting the announcement on Saturday, just the core values that taught everything they did to contribute to the game of football. And it was just really great to see, especially to like a guy like Jimmy Johnson. I mean, who's obviously away a long time. The biggest question is, will a guy like Jimmy Johnson have to go over the Cowboys talk, but kind of have to touch on this a little bit. And, you know, there's been like a little bit of like a rocky history with him and Jerry Jones, even though they still seem to be connected real well. But it still seems to be a lot of controversy how that dynasty ended, the Cowboys, where you had back-to-back Super Bowls, and you just decide to like cut ties and both mutually agree to part ways. That was just unacceptable, if you ask me. I think right now when we look at it for the time being, I mean, Jimmy Johnson at the end of the day, the only difference versus him versus Cowher, he did go on to go to another team. Obviously did inherit the Don Shula led Dolphins with Dan Marino. And what he had to do right there, I mean, Don Shula, who stepped away after the 1995 season, Jimmy Johnson came in there for 3 years, took him to 3 straight playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, in each of those seasons. Obviously, they did not come out. They did not finish the way they would have liked to, but obviously, there was still a little bit of bittersweet, unfinished business taste in their mouths. I mean, Johnson, who was one of the guys who had to convince like Marino to kind of like start utilizing the run game a little bit more and not be so much dependent on Marino. I mean, Marino at that time, I mean, his years were slowly dwindling down despite the intensity he brought to the game. I think all that stuff. But like I said, I think the biggest question when you think of a guy like Jimmy Johnson, will this finally be the year that Jerry Jones will be willing to patch things up, put him in the Cowboys' Ring of Honor? You have to think about that. I mean, if you ask me, I mean, that will officially put to rest their relationship. So, again, let's get into some other stuff right now as we look at it. According to Stan Savern, who is a host of Savern on Sports, who could be listened, you could listen to him on iHeartRadio on 970 AM Pittsburgh. You can be followed on Twitter, once again, as I mentioned, that's at Stan Love the Show. He got to talk with Steelers president Art Rooney II. And, I mean, he was definitely just very impressed. I mean, they were, like, just talking about how it was. I mean, how much did Bill Cowher impress? I mean, like, with his Pittsburgh, like, motivation. I mean, his pep talk as far as, like, what it mean to represent Pittsburgh in getting hired for like the coach job. And he obviously one of the things he was saying too was that he didn't want to be over modest and like let that necessarily be the selling point. But there was a lot more other factors that were just like in there. I mean, when he got and took this job, when they took a chance on him, being replacing and retiring Chuck Noll. I mean, at the same time, like I said, you remember Chuck Noll, the guy who won 4 Super Bowls and made the playoffs. I mean, once he finally got in, he made it for 8 straight years. And then he only had about 4 other playoff appearances, 82 for 84, and of course, 1989. 1983, which was the very first playoff they had to do without Terry Bradshaw, who actually retired. And he was definitely having like the throwing elbow come into effect at that time. So I think right there, I mean, there was a time in Pittsburgh during that time historically where it just almost felt like, I mean, the bad times were coming in once again into this franchise. I mean, the misfortunes, despite being successful for that Steel Curtain dynasty that Chuck Noll had established, they went for some droughts. It phased out eventually. As time waits for no one, time gets us all. But I mean, you saw a guy who, in his final years, in his final, I mean, 10 seasons that he was with the organization, who actually made the playoffs. I mean, 4 out of the last 10 times, he was 4 for 10. That's something you would hear often, but I mean, at the same time, too, this was a guy who definitely had a workman's like mentality, get guys to buy in. And for Bill Cowher to help restore some life back into that team, he had Chuck Noll's team for most of the 1990s. And then, of course, I mean, it wasn't until like around like prior, like somewhere between 98 for 2000, when it was finally all his that he built up. I mean, when you look at the people who were on here, I mean, giving them shout outs, congratulations, all that stuff. I mean, one of the guys, I think, too, when you look at it, I mean, who's definitely a good guy. You also think of a guy, I mean, like Chris Hoke, who got drafted in 1998 by Bill Cowher. I mean, this guy who was a 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Steelers, nose tackle, defensive tackle. I mean, just definitely those list of shoutouts just came on and on. And I was just so happy. And I'll be honest with you, prior to the Ravens Titans game, my weekend was happy. I don't know about anyone else, but here's where the question comes in. Now with Cowher getting in here into the Hall of Fame right now, and you look at like the coaches that are in there, you got Jimmy Johnson, well deserved. I thought maybe Mike Holmgren could have probably got in there before Johnson, but then again, Johnson had the 2 Super Bowl back-to-back Super Bowls right there. And you got to think that was a big what if. I mean, if he would have stayed on, how much more they could have won if him and Jones would have not allowed, I mean, both their egos get in the way. I mean, more so with Jerry Jones. I mean, you have Bill Cowher, who had a lifetime win-loss record of 161, 99, and 1. Then, of course, you had Jimmy Johnson, too, who finished with a career total of 89, 68, and 0. Cowher had stayed around a lot more. But also, when you look at Jimmy Johnson's pedigree, too, I mean, one of the things about Johnson that was very impressive, too, and I think you got to figure this, because remember, we're saying Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I'm sure it's being viewed on all levels, because you got to remember, too, you also coached a guy like Michael Irvin, who was a national champion with the Miami Hurricanes, and he was a national champion for coming in here, and it was just really incredible, like what he did. I mean, just not only be a national champion, but a Super Bowl champion, a 2-time Super Bowl champion. As a matter of fact, as we look at it, I mean, Jimmy Johnson, who won national championship with the Miami Hurricanes back in 1989, and then also 1987. So he was a two-time national champion as well as a two-time Super Bowl champion. And you look at that. So just all that stuff right there, what he's been able to do, and it was just an impressive resume. I think it's also like when you look at body of work, and when you look at a guy like Tower too, one of the things that he definitely had on him, I mean, both him and Johnson, they were both coach of the years. Mike Holmgren was never coach of the year. I mean, for some odd reason, which I felt like he should have got at least one of those. But it is what it is on this. I just could not just been more happier for what I saw and just how everything just broke down right there. I mean, just to see that early. So my question is, here's where I'm getting at, and sorry for stalling on the Steeler Nation, but what do you guys think of Mike Tomlin's chances of getting in the Hall of Fame if he's got similar numbers to Cowher, but then again, if he decides to stick around more, if Mike Tomlin at least wins one more Super Bowl, does that necessarily make him a lock? I mean, Mike Tomlin, for the time being in his career, he's got a lifetime win-loss record of 141, 81, and 1, as opposed to Bill Cowher's got 161 victories. So, I mean, he's 20, basically, he's like 20 wins shy of matching Cowher, 0.1 of passing him. I mean, that's pretty darn good right there. I just don't know else how to say it. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like Tomlin will eventually get in? Do you think he has to wait long? Or do you think he's not a Hall of Famer? Please tweet me your thoughts. I can follow on Twitter at Men of Steel CJR, or you can just find my Facebook page, Men of Steel Nation. Once you like the page, it's at Men of Steel Nation. And then you could also check me out on Instagram, Men of Steel Nation, my YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast, as we take a look at everything right now and get ready to move things flowing right now. But yeah, I just feel like right now it's just about some good stuff happening, and it's just been very impressive to see how the selection process is going. I think definitely it makes a good way to kind of help with loss not being in the playoffs, but something for the offseason fans can look forward to. And I was just so happy about that. And I like I said, I love Tomlin. I'm just glad to get him, meet him up in person. But at the same time, too, I just want to hear your thoughts. Do you guys believe he is a Hall of Famer at some point when we get into this year? And we'll see how it goes. But again, the number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232. The phone lines are open. I welcome all your phone calls right now for this time as we get ready to wrap things up here, coming up shortly. Right now, another topic I also want to get into right now, like I said, what do you guys feel like about the chances of guys like Donnie Shell, who's finished his career in 1987? I mean, this guy who has waited for such a long time, which is ridiculous amount. But I mean, for a guy right here, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, who'll be trying to get in on his 28th attempt. I really feel like that's just a little bit embarrassing that he's had to wait this long. And I don't know what the deal is. I mean, this is a guy who obviously did not get drafted. And when we take a look at it, I mean, he's a guy right now who was part of that decade of that team. You have like about 12 guys on in the Hall of Fame right now from the Steel Curtain 70 Dynasty. And is it just really getting to the point where people are just kind of getting tired of putting a lot of guys from the 70s in there? That is a legendary team at the end of the day. I think what will happen, probably more than likely, what we'll see, and we'll get to this towards the end, but I'll probably say that Alan Faneca will have to probably wait one more year, and they'll probably put in Donnie Shell ahead of him. And I'll get into that. I'll introduce it as an early fair or foul topic right now. Fair or foul, do you guys feel that Alan Faneca will wait another year, and this will be finally the year for a guy like Donnie Shell to get into the Hall of Fame? You think Faneca will wait another year, and it'll just be Troy Polamalu, who sounds like he should have a good shot at getting on his first attempt? And then, of course, you already got Bill Cowher, and you guys think it'll just be Donnie Shell. Alan Faneca will get in next year, despite having 9 Pro Bowls, 6 All Pros, and a Super Bowl ring for an offensive lineman. I mean, when you look at it and when it's all said and done, and just to see how it will unfold, Alan Faneca, who's been a guard, tackle, and center in his career, it just that one seems to be like definitely a bit of a head scratcher for a lot of Steeler fans and NFL voters, how he's been waiting this long. And it just really just gets iffy. I mean, like how the writers are viewing this. I'm really rooting for. I can definitely tell you, Pierre King, he's definitely one of the guys who is the voter on this panel here. I'm sure he's definitely has his voice heard. But then again, you also have Bill Belichick, which I was also told earlier too when listening 93.7 The Fan. He was definitely influential, I think, with the coaches. I mean, don't forget, I mean, he was also influential on the NFL 100 team too. But the thing was, he didn't know any of the picks. He was the guy who was hosting with Rich Eisen, Chris Collinsworth, and did a phenomenal job, if you ask me. I mean, just respecting the history of this game. I think what it really just comes down to is a more so character, like how we saw with Terrell Owens. I'm not saying it's anything with Troy Polamalu, but how they perceive him. Because one of the things I'm getting right here for a guy like Troy Polamalu, and when we look at it is that stated reluctance to such honors. It's that humility is a definition of Samoa. It is what makes him a legend in his ancestral home. That must be explained to voters. I'm not sure about that, but I definitely feel right now when you look at all the honors, I'm not so sure about being his heritage, but I mean, a lot of people are looking at right now Ed Reed. Ed Reed was really that good. I mean, if you ask me, I think he definitely deserved to be in on his first try. I still had a little bit of hesitation about Polamalu, but now that I see the finalists, I'm feeling pretty good about his chances. Again, nothing is for certain. I hope he gets that knock, and which I'm sure he will. But again, I don't want to overplay my hand and say that he will. In actuality, it's not the case. So, I mean, I just believe it's complete body work. He's got 2 Super Bowls. He's a Defense Player of the Year, 4 All Pros with 8 Pro Bowls in his career, and that's why I feel like he deserves it. So let's also get into one other thing too that was announced today. Right now, he also had guys from the Steelers who made it on to the Pro Football Writers of America All NFL team. Now, remember, to be an All-Pro in the NFL, that's usually voted on by the AP, the Associated Press. That's usually the official. Right here, the Pro Football Writers of America right now, they definitely expanded a lot more as far as like how they vote for, I mean, their teams and what they do and what they pride themselves on. I mean, this has been around for a long time when we look at it. And they've been around, I think, since the start of the Super Bowl era. It's in its 56th season right now. I mean, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, so it did begin since 1966, same year that the Super Bowl era has begun. But here are some of the Steelers who got in on there. And as far as like being on the all NFL team, it was pretty much defense right there for the all NFL team. I'm talking about none other, of course, defensive tackle Cam Hayward, free safety Mika Fitzpatrick, who made it on for their first time. And then, of course, for like the all AFC team, they also do NFC as well. So they do it by conference. That's the difference versus the all pro team that you usually see. And for the all AFC team, you had left outside linebacker TJ Watt, free safety Mika Fitzpatrick, and of course, defensive tackle Cam Hayward. And then you also had on here too for for this year for the all AFC team for like the special teams, you also had on here for the all NFL special teams, all NFL special teams, not all AFC. You got Deontay Johnson. I mean, this kid, I don't know about you, but he's definitely to be special. Like I said, as long as he can just keep his head on straight, unlike some people. I mean, we hear we're former Steelers. I'm like, the obvious names, but I just feel right now when we look at it, I mean, these are guys right here who are darn good lads of the game and really just put a lot of pride into like what's being a Steeler, how it's hard work, dedication, contributions. And we'll find out. I mean, how that all fits in the grand scheme of things. But I definitely like what the Steelers are doing right now. I mean, just as far as like, who knows if this will be the final days of Kevin Colbert being GM, if he's going to even hang around. It would be real interesting to see if he decides to stay on because, like I said, nothing's for certain at this point. But as we look at it, nothing, like I said, as one thing's for sure, nothing is for sure as we look at it. And we'll find out, I mean, how this works out. But I really do hope he stays on. Definitely could use him around and for a long while. I mean, he's just been so valuable. I mean, to what he's contributed to this organization. When you think of guys like Dick Haley, and then of course Donahoe, I mean, who's been around here. I mean, in the '90s, and like I said, it's been really just remarkable what he's did. Tom Donahoe, who was a Steelers GM with the Steelers from, and I believe it was 1991 through 1999. So he served there for like 9 seasons and did just as much. I mean, other that time too. I mean, Bill Cowher made 6 straight playoff appearances. I mean, tying right there. I mean, Paul Brown, and that's how special that was. And we'll see how it continues to work out. But anyway, right now, let's get into one other topic real quick before we get ready to close out. Let's lead into it right now as we take a look at. Oh, one other thing too, Mark Kaboly, very quick here, who no doubt is a very interesting stats. Like we haven't already known this about Bill Cowher, but when playing with double-digit leads, more particularly with 11 points, under Bill Cowher, his teams are 194-2, and the only losses were to the Bengals back in 2001, 2009, Ravens 2015, and the Chargers 2018. I mean, under the Steelers overall, So since 1992, so whereas Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin, Steelers have a record of 194-2. Bill Belichick from that span was 167-9. That is pretty freaking remarkable. As for Bill Cowher, he is 108-1 with his losses coming to the 4-10 Bengals in 2001. And when he knows that in that game, Ron Dugans and Danny Farmer caught touchdowns from John Kidna within 2 minutes late in the game, sending it to overtime for a stoop through 4 second half picks. And like I said, fair or foul right now. This is what I'm gonna close out with. Mike Tom will eventually get in the Canton Pro Football Hall of Fame with his resume: 170, 133, 74 and one regular season wins, 8-7 playoff record with a 1-1 Super Bowl record, and of course a lifetime career win-loss percentage of 141, 81 and one. What do you guys think? Do you think he'll definitely get in based off that resume? I'd love for you to leave comments on the page. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Feel free to check me out. Again, I can be followed on social media at Prodigy Richie. And then I could also be followed on my Instagram stream, Men of Steel Nation. And of course, my YouTube channel, like I said, Men of Steel Podcast. As always, leave it. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, serious. Here we go. I gone.